There are moments in life when destiny reveals itself not through grand gestures, but through small objects passed down through generations. A ring, a photograph, a piece of carved bone no bigger than your thumb. Sometimes the most powerful inheritance isn't land or money or livestock. Sometimes it's a voice, a connection, a gift that skips generations, waiting for the right person to pick it up and understand what it means. At the Broken Compass Ranch, Maya Miller was about to discover that she'd inherited more than her grandfather's stubbornness. She'd inherited his gift, the ability to speak a language older than words, a language that Baron, the scarred king of Lamar Valley, had been waiting 20 years to hear again. But gifts come with prices, and powers attract predators. And in the modern world, some people would do anything, absolutely anything, to control what cannot be controlled. This is the story of the day Maya found her voice, and the day others realized just how dangerous that voice could be. Welcome back to the Broken Compass Ranch, where whistles carry more than sound, where inheritance means more than property, and where a 16-year-old girl is about to become what her grandfather always knew she would be: a guardian, a voice, an heir to something ancient and wild and impossible to fake. Maya couldn't sleep. It had been 3 days since her father rejected Cascade Energy's offer, and the tension in the house was thick enough to cut. Liz tried to maintain normalcy, cooking elaborate meals that no one had appetite for. Jack spent hours on the phone with lawyers, his voice growing tighter with each conversation. And Ma felt caught between childhood and something else, something bigger that she didn't fully understand but could feel pulling at her like gravity. At 2 in the morning, she gave up trying to sleep and wandered to Silas's study. Her grandfather's presence was strongest here, in the smell of old leather and pipe tobacco that still clung to the furniture despite weeks of his absence. She'd been reading his journals methodically, learning about the herd, about Baron, about 50 years of wisdom distilled into careful handwriting. But tonight she was drawn to something else. The old roll-top desk in the corner, the one with the stuck drawer that Silas had never bothered to fix. Maya had tried opening it before without success, but tonight, maybe because of the cold that had shrunk the wood, or maybe because of something else entirely, the drawer slid open with a sound like a sigh. Inside was a collection of objects that looked like artifacts from a museum: an old pocket watch with a cracked face, a bundle of letters tied with string, the ink faded to brown, a photograph of a young Silas with a woman Maya didn't recognize, his mother, maybe, or an early love, and at the very back, wrapped in soft deerskin, something small and cylindrical. Maya unwrapped it carefully. It was a whistle, carved from what looked like elk bone, worn smooth by decades of use. It was beautiful in its simplicity. No decorations, no ornaments, just functional craft perfected over time. One end was shaped to fit lips. The other was open, with careful notches cut to create specific tones. Maya brought it to her lips without thinking, then hesitated. What if it was fragile? What if she broke something irreplaceable? But the bone felt warm in her hands, almost alive, and something in her, some instinct she didn't know she possessed, understood that this whistle wasn't fragile. It was meant to be used, meant to be passed down, meant to find the person who could speak its language. Maya blew softly. The note that emerged was low and pure,
a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than the carved bone. It filled the study, then spread beyond it, carrying through the walls like it was made of something more than air. Outside, in the darkness beyond the house, something stirred. Maya walked to the window and looked out at the moonlit valley. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just frost-covered fields and the dark shapes of sleeping bison. But then, at the fence line closest to the house, she saw him, Baron, standing perfectly still, his massive head turned toward the house, toward the study, toward the sound of a whistle he hadn't heard in 2 months. Their eyes met across 100 yards of night. Maya felt something pass between them, not words, not even thoughts exactly, but understanding, recognition, the kind of connection that transcends species and time and logic. Maya blew the whistle again, the same low note, held longer this time. Baron's ears swiveled forward. He took one step toward the house, then another, not aggressive, not fearful, just listening, remembering, recognizing a voice that spoke the language his soul understood. Maya watched until he turned and walked back to the herd, his duty calling him away from this strange moment of connection. But before he disappeared into the darkness, he looked back once more, a promise, an acknowledgement, a beginning. Maya wrapped the whistle carefully and placed it around her neck on a leather cord she found in the drawer. It settled against her chest, warm and solid, feeling like it had always belonged there. In the morning, she would tell her father about finding it, about the sound it made and Baron's response. But for now, in the quiet hours before dawn, she simply stood at the window and understood that her life had just changed in a way she couldn't articulate but could feel in every cell of her body. She wasn't just Maya Miller anymore, teenage girl displaced from Denver and forced into ranch life. She was something more, something older, a link in a chain that stretched back further than she could see and forward further than she could imagine. She was her grandfather's heir, and the whistle had chosen her.
The official letter arrived 4 days later, delivered by certified mail that required Jack's signature. The envelope bore the seal of the Montana Department of Livestock, and the words "Mandatory Compliance Inspection" were stamped in red across the front. Jack read it once, his face going pale. Then he read it again, slower, looking for loopholes that weren't there. "They're coming to inspect the herd," Jack told Liz and Maya, his voice hollow. "Full health and safety evaluation. They want every animal examined, tested, and tagged. They're claiming there's been a complaint about potential disease vectors in the valley." "That's ridiculous," Liz said. "The herd is healthy. We just had the vet out 3 weeks ago. Clean bill of health for everyone." The vet examined the ones she could safely approach, which wasn't Baron. And apparently, state regulations require all animals in commercial herds to be individually inspected and registered. No exceptions. Maya felt cold spread through her chest. They can't examine Baron. No one can get close enough. Except... She stopped, her hand going to the bone whistle hanging beneath her shirt. Jack noticed the gesture. "Except what?" "Grandpa could," Maya said quietly. "Grandpa could examine him, touch him, do anything, because Baron trusted him." "Baron's not gonna trust state inspectors in hazmat suits waving clipboards and syringes. And if we can't demonstrate full compliance, if they determine we're harboring potentially dangerous animals that can't be properly managed, they have the authority to seize the entire herd." "When?" Maya asked. "Friday, 10 a.m.,
3 days from now." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. 3 days to figure out how to convince a wild, grieving 2,000-pound bull to submit to strangers with needles and tags. 3 days to accomplish what no one except Silas had ever managed. "This is them," Silas said suddenly. "Cascade. They couldn't buy us out, so they're using bureaucracy as a weapon. I guarantee if we look into who filed the complaint, it traces back to them." "Probably," Jack agreed, "but it doesn't matter. The inspection is legal. The regulations are real. We have to comply or lose everything." He looked at Maya, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Hope mixed with desperation. The look of a man grasping at straws. "That whistle you found, the one Silas used, you said Barron responded to it." He stopped. He listened. He came closer. "Could you use it to calm him, to let the inspectors approach?" Maya's hand closed around the whistle. "I don't know. I've only used it twice. I don't really understand how it works or what I'm doing." "But you're the only chance we have," Jack said softly. "You're Silas's granddaughter. You have his gift. Barron recognizes you. If anyone can do this, it's you." The weight of that expectation settled on Maya's shoulders like physical pressure. She was 16. She'd been around Barron for less than a month. She'd touched him once in a storm, driven by adrenaline and instinct. Now her father was asking her to control him, really control him, while strangers invaded his space and his herd. "What if I can't?" she whispered. "Then we lose the ranch," Jack said simply, "and Barron gets sent to a sanctuary or worse, and everything Silas built dies with him."
For 3 days, Maya did nothing but practice. She woke before dawn and went to the fence line, whistle in hand. She studied Barron's rhythms, when he was most alert, when he was calm, when he led the herd to water or grazing. She learned to read his body language, the position of his ears, the angle of his head, the subtle shifts in posture that signaled curiosity or concern or contentment. And she played the whistle. Different notes, different rhythms, different intentions behind the breath. She discovered that the long, low note was greeting, recognition, peace. A shorter, sharper note was warning, alert, attention required. A wavering, rising tone was question, invitation, come closer. The whistle wasn't magic, it was language. And like any language, it required practice, mistakes, and gradual understanding. Barron responded differently to each tone. Sometimes he came closer. Sometimes he stopped what he was doing and looked toward her. Once, when she played a particular sequence, he led the entire herd away from a section of pasture, and 10 minutes later, a coyote emerged from that exact spot, hunting for vulnerable calves. He was teaching her, showing her what each sound meant to him, to the herd, to the ancient contract between his kind and hers. On the second day, Maya tried something new. She walked into the pasture, not approaching Barron directly, but moving parallel to him, the way wolves move when they don't want to threaten. She played the greeting tone, then stopped, played it again, then stopped. Barron watched, but didn't approach, not yet. He was testing her, measuring her intentions. Maya sat down in the grass, making herself small and non-threatening. She played the tone again, softer this time, an echo of her grandfather's voice, carried through bone and breath and memory. Slowly, impossibly, Barron walked toward her. Not all the way. He stopped about 15 feet away, but closer than he'd ever come when she wasn't behind a fence or in a crisis.
He stood there, studying her with those dark, intelligent eyes, reading her the way she was learning to read him. "I'm not him," Maya said softly, not playing the whistle now, but using her actual voice. "I'm not Grandpa. I don't have his years or his wisdom or whatever it was that made you trust him, but I'm his blood. I have his gift, I think, and I need you to trust me. Just a little, just enough." Barron snorted, a sound that could have meant anything. Then he turned and walked back to the herd. But he'd come. That was progress. That was hope. On the morning of the inspection, Maya awoke at 4 a.m. and went to the barn. She found her grandfather's old work gloves, his canvas jacket, his wide-brimmed hat. She dressed in his clothes, letting his scent surround her. Then she took the whistle and walked to the pasture where Barron stood watch over the sleeping herd. "Today's the day," she told him, though he was still 50 yards away. "Strangers are coming, strangers who smell wrong and move wrong and want to put their hands on your family. I need you to let them. I need you to trust that I won't let them hurt anyone. Can you do that? Can you trust me the way you trusted him?" Barron snorted, a sound that could have meant anything. Then he turned and walked back to the herd, ready, waiting, trusting. Or at least Maya desperately hoped he was.
The vehicles arrived precisely at 10 a.m. 2 official Montana Department of Livestock trucks, a van full of equipment, and, Maya noticed with cold recognition, a black SUV that parked slightly apart from the official vehicles, Cascade Energy Solutions, observing their handiwork. From the lead truck emerged 5 people, 3 veterinary technicians in clean collarvols, a woman with a clipboard who introduced herself as Dr. Patricia Reeves, and an older man with a weathered face and eyes that had seen too much. "Mr. Miller," the older man said, shaking Jack's hand, "I'm Chief Inspector Harold Voss. We're here to conduct the mandatory health and safety evaluation of your bison herd. This is a standard procedure, required every 5 years for all commercial livestock operations. Nothing to be concerned about." But his eyes said otherwise. They flicked toward the black SUV, then back to Jack. A message passed between them. "We both know this isn't standard. We both know why we're really here." "How does this work?" Jack asked, his voice tight. Dr. Reeves stepped forward. "We'll need to examine each animal individually. Blood draw for disease testing, visual inspection for parasites or injuries, and an RFID tag implanted just under the skin for tracking purposes. The process takes about 15 minutes per animal. With a herd your size, we should be finished by this evening." "And if any animal can't be examined?" Maya asked from beside her father. Dr. Reeves' expression turned sympathetic. "Then we have to classify them as unmanaged wildlife, which means they can't be legally kept on private property under commercial livestock regulations. They'd be seized and relocated to an approved sanctuary facility." "Convenient," Les muttered. Inspector Voss shot her a look that might have been agreement. Then he turned to Jack. "I knew your father, Mr. Miller. Silas and I served together in the Army long before he started this ranch. He was a stubborn son of a gun, but he was honest, and he loved these animals like they were his children. I'm going to do this by the book, but I'm going to do it fair. If there's a way to make this work, we'll find it." The words were carefully chosen, a lifeline wrapped in official language.
Inspector Voss wasn't their enemy, but he was constrained by rules and observers in the black SUV watching from the tree line. They started with the easier animals, the younger bison, the cows, the adolescent bulls who'd never known anything but Silas's gentle handling. The herd was nervous but manageable. Maya helped, using the whistle to keep 'em calm, playing soft tones that said, "These strangers are temporary. This discomfort is brief. Trust the voice you know." It worked better than anyone expected. Animals that should have panicked stayed relatively calm. The inspection proceeded smoothly, efficiently. By 3 p.m., they'd processed 26 of the 30 bison, which left the 4 that really mattered, the older bulls, the ones who remembered when this valley was wilder and humans were rare, the ones who'd learned wariness through experience. And Barron, standing at the far end of the pasture, watching everything, his massive form radiating disapproval. "That's the one, isn't it?" Dr. Reeves asked quietly. "The one from the incident reports, Barron?" "That's him," Jack confirmed. "He looks aggressive." "He's protective," Maya corrected. "There's a difference." Dr. Reeves exchanged a glance with Inspector Voss. "Mr. Miller, I need to be honest with you. Based on the documented history, the attack on your neighbor, the charge that damaged your ATV, and the confrontation with the survey team, I'm not comfortable putting my technicians at risk. If that animal can't be safely approached—" "He can be," Maya interrupted. "I can keep him calm. You're 16 years old. I'm Silas Miller's granddaughter, and Barron knows it." Inspector Voss studied Maya with those ancient eyes. "Silas really did pass it down, didn't he? The gift. I saw him once, years ago, standing in the middle of this same herd during a lightning storm. Every animal panicked except Barron. Your grandfather just stood there, playing that little whistle, and Barron became an anchor, kept the whole herd from stampeding. I thought I'd never see anything like it again." "You're about to," Maya said with more confidence than she felt.
They approached Barron's section of pasture slowly. Maya went first, the whistle hanging visible against her chest. Behind her, at a distance she'd specified, came Dr. Reeves and one technician carrying the minimum equipment needed for examination. Inspector Voss, Jack, and Liz watched from the fence line. From the black SUV, binoculars glinted in the afternoon sun. Everyone watching, everyone waiting to see if the Miller gift was real or just family mythology. Barron saw them coming. His head came up, his scarred eye fixed on the strangers behind Maya. He pawed the ground once, a warning, a line drawn. Maya stopped walking and raised her hand, signaling the others to halt. She brought the whistle to her lips and began to play. Not the simple greeting tone she'd used before. This was different, more complex, a story told in breath and bone about trust and family and the thin line between protection and fear. It was part memory, echoes of Silas's voice that Barron would recognize, and part promise, Maya's own voice, new but sincere, asking for what she had no right to expect. Barron's ears swiveled forward. He stopped pawing. The tension in his massive shoulders eased slightly. Maya played the whistle another sequence. This one was more personal, drawing on the 3 days of practice, the language she and Barron had been developing together. She was telling him, "I see you. I honor you. These people mean no harm. Let them close just for a moment, and then they'll leave forever."
Barron took a step forward, then another, not toward the strangers, but toward Ma, closing the distance between them until he stood just 10 feet away, close enough that she could see the silver in his dark fur, the intelligence in his eyes, the weight of years in his posture. Ma lowered the whistle and spoke aloud. "They need to touch you, big guy. Take some blood, put a little chip under your skin so the government knows you exist. It'll hurt for a second, and you'll hate it, but then it's done, and I'll be right here the whole time. I promise." She glanced back at Dr. Reeves and nodded. The veterinarian approached slowly, her movements careful and non-threatening. The technician followed, syringe and tag applicator ready. Barron's attention shifted to them. His body tensed. A low rumble started in his chest, not quite a bellow, but a warning. One more step and the fragile piece would shatter. Ma played the whistle again, a single note held long and steady, an anchor, a lifeline, a voice saying, "Trust me, trust this, trust that I won't let them hurt you." Barron's gaze swung back to her. For 5 eternal seconds he made his decision, weighed 50 years of experience against 2 months of connection, measured the trust Silas had built against the trust Ma was asking for. Then slowly, impossibly, Barron lowered his head in submission. Dr. Reeves worked quickly and professionally. Blood draw from the jugular. Barron flinched but didn't move. Tag application behind the ear, a moment of pain, a sharp snort of protest, but still he held. Visual examination of hooves, eyes, coat. Barron tolerated it all, his attention never wavering from Ma and the whistle she held like a talisman. 3 minutes, that's all it took. 3 minutes of controlled chaos, of breath held and prayers whispered. 3 minutes that felt like hours. When it was done, Dr. Reeves stepped back slowly. "We're finished. Thank you, Barron. You're a very good boy." The veterinarian's voice was sincere, warm, but Barron didn't care about her gratitude. He turned his massive head toward Ma and stared at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. Had she betrayed his trust, broken the covenant before it was fully formed? Would he charge now, all his protective fury turned against the girl who'd promised safety and delivered pain? Ma played the whistle one more time, the goodbye tone, the sound that said, "It's over, you were brave, you can rest now." Barron held her gaze for one more heartbeat, then he snorted, shook his massive head as if clearing away the memory of the violation, and turned to walk back to his herd, not running, not panicking, just returning to his duty with dignity intact. The fence line erupted in cheering. Jack was hugging Liz. Inspector Voss was shaking his head in amazement. Even the technicians were applauding. But Ma didn't join the celebration. She simply stood in the pasture, whistle in hand, watching Barron take his place among his family. The guardian returned, the covenant honored, the trust maintained. She'd done it. She'd spoken the language and been understood. She'd become what Silas always knew she would be, a voice, a bridge, an heir.
The official vehicles packed up and prepared to leave. Dr. Reeves signed the compliance forms with a smile. "Clean bill of health for the entire herd, Mr. Miller. You receive the official certification within 2 weeks. Congratulations." Voss lingered, standing with Jack near the barn while Maya put away the equipment and Liz went to prepare coffee. "That was remarkable," Voss said quietly. "Silas did it better. More years of practice, I suppose, but she's got the gift. No question about it."
She's amazing, Jack agreed, pride and terror mixing in his voice. I just hope she understands what she's taking on. Voss's expression turned serious. Jack, I need to tell you something off the record. The complaint that triggered this inspection, it came through official channels, but it was pushed by Cascade Energy Solutions. They wanted us to find your operation non-compliant, wanted us to seize the herd, and especially Barron. I figured as much. But here's the thing. Voss glanced toward the black SUV, which was slowly pulling away, its occupants disappointed by today's outcome. I've been doing this job for 30 years. I've seen a lot of corporate pressure, a lot of manipulation of regulatory systems, but I've never seen a company this determined, this focused. They're not going to stop, Jack, and now that they've seen what Maya can do, he trailed off, but the implication was clear. What are you saying? Jack asked, though he already knew. I'm saying that kind of control over wild animals is valuable, incredibly valuable, for zoos, for breeding programs, for research facilities. There are people who would pay fortunes for someone with that ability, and there are people who would do worse than pay. Jack's blood ran cold. You think she's in danger? I think she's demonstrated something that some people might see as an opportunity, and I think you need to be very careful who knows about this. Voss pulled out a business card and pressed it into Jack's hand. My personal cell number. If anything strange happens, anything at all, you call me immediately. Cascade isn't the only predator out here, Jack. They're just the ones wearing suits. After Voss left, Jack found Maya in the barn, taking care of the whistle with the same reverence people use for religious artifacts. She was wiping it clean, checking for cracks, wrapping it carefully before hanging it back around her neck. You did an incredible thing today, Jack told her. I just played a whistle, Dad. Grandpa's the one who figured out the language. No, Silas learned to speak to Barron over 20 years. You learned in 3 days. That's not practice. That's gift. That's inheritance of something I don't fully understand. Maya looked at her father, and he saw she was scared. The adrenaline was fading, and reality was setting in. What if I'd failed? What if Barron had charged the inspectors? What if I'd gotten someone killed? But you didn't. You trusted yourself, and Barron trusted you. That's what matters. Inspector Voss seemed worried when he left. What did he say to you? I hesitated, wanting to protect her daughter, wanting to let her enjoy this victory, but she deserved the truth. He said what you did today was remarkable, and that remarkable things attract attention, not all of it good. Maya's hand went to the whistle. They want it, don't they? Cascade. They want to know how to control Barron, how to control the herd. I think they want you, Jack said quietly, or at least they want what you represent, the ability to manage wildlife that shouldn't be manageable. That's worth money to certain people. I'm not going anywhere, Maya said, her jaw setting in that stubborn Miller way. This is my home now. Barron is my responsibility. They can't have any of it. Jack pulled his daughter into a hug. I know, but we need to be smart, careful. Cascade tried legal pressure and failed. They'll try something else. And now they know our greatest strength is also our greatest vulnerability. What's that? You. They stood together in the barn as the sun dipped toward the horizon, father and daughter, city accountant and young guardian, both trying to understand the weight of the inheritance they'd accepted. Outside, Barron stood watch as always, but something had changed. He'd submitted to humans he didn't trust because of a voice he recognized. He'd allowed violation of his body because a girl asked him to. He'd proven that the gift Silas possessed hadn't died with him, and in doing so, he'd painted a target on the back of everyone at the Broken Compass Ranch.
That night, Maya stood at her bedroom window, watching the moonlit valley. The whistle hung warm against her chest, a constant reminder of what she'd become, what she'd inherited. Below, she could see Baron making his rounds, checking on the herd, maintaining his eternal vigil. The RFID tag behind his ear was invisible from this distance, but Maya knew it was there. Physical proof that even the wildest things could be marked, tracked, claimed by systems and regulations. But Baron wasn't marked in his soul. The tag was just metal and technology. The real Baron, the guardian, the judge, the keeper of echoes, remained free in ways no chip could measure or control. Maya understood now what Silas had tried to teach through his journals and his hidden whistle. The gift wasn't about control. It was about conversation, about speaking a language that predated human language, about asking rather than commanding, about respect rather than dominance. Baron hadn't submitted to her today. He'd partnered with her, trusted her, chosen to honor the request of someone who spoke his language with sincerity. That was power, real power, the kind that couldn't be bought or stolen or regulated. And it terrified her. A knock on her door pulled her from her thoughts. It was her mother, carrying 2 cups of tea, a small smile on her face. "Couldn't sleep either?" Liz asked, settling onto the edge of Maya's bed. "Too much adrenaline, too many thoughts. Your father told me what Inspector Voss said about people knowing now, about the danger." Maya nodded. "I'm scared, Mom, not of Baron, but of what happens next, of who might come looking for what I can do." Liz was quiet for a moment, then said, "When I first met your father, he was running from this place, from his father's expectations, from the weight of being a miller. He thought he could build a different life in the city, and he did for a while. But some inheritances can't be refused. Some gifts won't let you go." "You think I'm stuck with this?" "I think you were born for this. I've watched you these past weeks. You're more alive here than you were in Denver. More prison, more yourself. The whistle didn't give you a gift, Maya. It just revealed what was always there." Maya touched the bone carved smooth by her grandfather's lips. "What if I'm not strong enough? What if something happens and I fail?" "Then you fail. But you failed trying to protect something that matters. That's more than most people ever do." Liz stood, kissed the top of Maya's head. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we figure out what comes next. Tonight, just let yourself be proud of what you did." After her mother left, Maya returned to the window. In the distance, she saw headlights on the access road, a vehicle moving slowly, deliberately along the property line, not entering, just watching. The black SUV, still there, still observing, still planning. Maya brought the whistle to her lips and blew softly, too quiet for any human to hear, but Baron's ears were better than human. In the moonlight, she saw his massive head turn toward the house, toward her window, toward the sound. A moment of connection across the darkness, guardian and heir, acknowledging each other, ready for whatever came next. Because something was coming. They could all feel it. The inspection was over.
But the real test was just beginning. Cascade Energy Solutions had seen what they needed to see, had understood that the Miller family had something they wanted, something valuable, something dangerous in the wrong hands. And in the world of corporate greed and calculated risk, there was always a way to acquire valuable things, legal ways, illegal ways, ways that operated in the gray spaces between. Maya didn't know what form the next attack would take, didn't know if she'd be strong enough to face it, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wasn't facing it alone. She had her family, she had the valley, she had a bone whistle that carried her grandfather's voice, and she had Barron, 2,000 pounds of ancient loyalty, who'd chosen to trust her when he had every reason not to. That would have to be enough.
This is the Broken Compass Ranch, where gifts become weapons, where voices carry power, where a 16-year-old girl just proved she could speak to the wild and made herself a target in the process. What will Cascade Energy Solutions do now that they know Maya's secret? How far will they go to acquire a gift that can't be bought? And what other dangers lurk in the shadows, drawn by the sound of a whistle that speaks the language of the ancient world? The guardian has chosen his heir. The heir has found her voice, and the predators are circling, waiting for their moment. This is the Bison Echoes, where inheritance comes with a price, where power attracts predators, where the old magic survives in the modern world, if those who carry it are brave enough to use it. Subscribe to witness what happens when the ancient and the modern collide, when corporate greed meets primal loyalty, when a girl with a whistle stands between civilization and the wild. The echo has been answered. Now comes the price of answering, and Barron stands ready to defend his heir, no matter what darkness comes calling.